Ladies and gentlemen, dear members and colleagues, on behalf of the Franco-German Office for the Energy Transition, I wish you a good morning. My name is Sven Rösner and I will present today's webinar on smart meters, concept, data protection and rollout, a Franco-German comparison. We hope that you, your families, friends and colleagues are well. Thank you very much for having registered and tuned in today for a webinar organized in cooperation with Think Smartgrids, during which we will try to provide you with a comparison of key features of the concepts chosen by Germany and France for communicating electricity meters. In comparison to other industries, the energy sector has been a late starter in terms of digitalization. While the grids have always been smart to some extent since the emergence of computers, terms like smart grids, smart meters, or big data were not so frequently used by the broader energy communities 10 years ago. A lot has changed since, also because digitalization is today touted as a key factor for boosting energy efficiency, and through this as a tool for climate change mitigation. The generation of exploitable data is therefore an important step, but also a very sensitive issue in some areas. Germany and France have developed quite different concepts for their smart meters to meet these specifications, and we are delighted to have with us today 3 insiders: Valerian Lenzner from Think Smartgrids, who will present a keynote in a minute, Martial Montfort from the French DSO Enedis, and Andreas Resch from the German Federal Office for Information Security, BSI, who will present the respective smart meter concepts for France and Germany. Good morning to you. We are very much looking forward to hear what you have to say in a minute. Before I pass over to you, however, I have some technical announcements to make. We are aware of the fact that this issue is a vast one and also, to some extent, a controversial one, and that our audience might have quite a few questions for our speakers. You can submit these via the question function in the webinar cockpit. We will do our best to keep at least 20 minutes for a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, but that might not be enough to answer all of them. I'd like to apologize for this eventuality straight away. However, our speakers agreed that we forward all unanswered questions after the end of the webinar. Also, the slides of the presentation will soon be available in the members section of our website, along with a video recording. A big thank you to Enedis and the BSI for your consentment. All participants shall receive a mail notifying you once these are available for you to consult. If you should experience difficulties with the sound or the image, my advice for you would be to shut down the webinar plugin and to relaunch it by clicking the link in the notification mail you received this morning. One last thing before we start. At the end of the webinar, you will be asked to participate in a quick questionnaire, which consists of just 5 questions. You can skip that, of course, but if you participate, you will help us to improve our format. And that's all from my side for now. Let's get started. Valerian, please take over. Have a great webinar, everyone.
Thank you, Sven. Welcome to all the participants, either in France, Germany, and other countries, to this special webinar dedicated to a comparison between French and the German smart metering strategy and implementation. My name is Valerian Lenzner, and I am the Managing Director of Think Smartgrids, a French association gathering the companies, big groups, startups, SME, schools, and labs working in the field of smart grids in France. Our association is currently chaired by Marianne Legnaud, who is also chairing the board of Enedis, the main French DSO. We count about 100 members, And our aim is to promote the know-how of our members, help them to export, and create synergies between them. So Think Smartgrids is member of OFATE and vice versa. First of all, I want to thank you, Sven Rösner. You are the director of OFATE, to have accepted to create this special event dedicated to this comparison of two systems of smart metering. So when we have had the first discussion about this event, we were making the consideration that data, and especially energy data, would be the oil of our industries. So when we talk about industries, we talk about our companies or the ecosystem of the energetical transition. That is to say, as well, renewable energy generation and implementation, also the grids, obviously, but also all kinds of services that would derive from all this ecosystem. A recent study organized by the French Ministry of Labor in France has established the figure of 166,000 jobs in France, representing this energy transition ecosystem. So potentially all our industries will be impacted at short or mid-term by the use of data. And with the Green Deal, with the recovery plan, we can find as many opportunities to create a new solution and new jobs in the field of energy data. But what is the first step to produce these energy data, to monitor them? This is a smart meter. So the development of smart meters is one of the major stakes to meet the challenges posed by the energy transition. The development of renewable energies and the growing need for flexibility, the emergence of new electrical uses, for example, smart charging for the electrical vehicle, the self-consumption, but also the prosumer's concern to consume less energy, to control its own consumption and reduce his electricity bill. So smart meters make it possible also to offer new services to consumers. And obviously, it's also an important issue for DSOs to create all kinds of remote operations and perform real-time supervision. So we can see that smart metering is one of the key elements in meeting these societal and environmental expectations. So France and Germany have adopted different strategies in order to implement these smart meters, which also respond to different needs and circumstances. Enedis manages 95% of the distribution network in France, and the linking meter was the only model deployed. And in comparison, we have nearly 900 electricity distributors in Germany. The deployment will be made in all French homes by December 2021. In Germany, meters currently only concern industries and homes equipped with a meter superior than 10 kilowatt hour, etc. So, as you can see, the strategy and the implementations are really different, and it will be a very interesting point to hear our both speakers, Mr. Montfort and Mr. Resch, talking to us about how all this has been decided in order to respond to all the different challenges that I have been quoting before. So now I will leave the floor to our speakers in order to explain us how they were committed, both of them, in this strategy of implementing the smart metering in each country. And I think we'll begin with Mr. Resch. Thank you for your attention.
Welcome, everybody. This is Andreas Resch from the Federal Office of Information Security, the BSI of Germany. I work as a referee in Section 21 with the title Cybersecurity for Digitization of the Energy Sector. I am glad to have the opportunity to participate today and welcome all the audience on behalf of Germany. I look forward to present you the German rollout and the key aspects of our design of the smart metering system. Next, please. The BSI is the national cybersecurity authority and shapes information security and digitization for prevention, detection, and reaction for government, business, and society. And in the field of the talk today, we focus a lot of prevention and, of course, on business and society. Our section is charged with the development of technical specification and protection profiles for the Smart Meter Gateway by the Metering Point Operating Act. And we work in close cooperation with the Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy. Next slide, please. I will talk today about the smart metering system infrastructure in Germany, the parts which comprises it. I will show you the state of play in Germany and point to the future development which is going to lie ahead. Next slide, please. For introduction, I will show you a map of different countries of Europe with some numbers which comes from a report from Electric, and the numbers are quite old. They're from 2010, but as I checked, they are quite good today as well. I want to focus here today on France and Germany and want to see the differences in the countries regarding the energy sector, especially the distribution of energy. Why this is important? Because we can see here the numbers of distribution system operators and additionally the ones with the most customers differ between the countries significantly. And the implementation of the EU regulations and directives, they have a strong impact on every detail of the energy sector, from technical aspects also to business models. That means that each country has to take a different approach in order to meet its own needs. Next slide, please. What you can see here is what I want to show you here is that there will be a shift from the direct use of fossil energy sources to a substitution by electricity. And this is to some parts due to the fact that a lot of countries already established both emission trading systems and carbon pricing. The map on the right comes from a World Bank report in 2019, and the countries which have here the stripes on its area have both implemented already. Germany will follow the next year by the 1st of January. And we can see on the left side in the diagram the pricing of the carbon pricing over time. And we see France started several years ago, Germany will follow right now, and the pricing is around 50 to 60 euros, at least in the end, or even higher. And this will put a pressure on the direct use of fossil energy to substitute by electricity. And if we have this in mind, the consumption of electricity will increase and put the existing grids under stress. So a main factor in planning a new infrastructure will have to take this into account. Next slide, please. So we have a transformation of the energy sector with in the production field from very few high production plants to a large variety of smaller plants, PV and wind plants. Some of them are privately driven, so the so-called prosumers. Also, the energy trade will become more violent with new players. We will have players which implement virtual plants, and we will have a strong use of local energy. So this is all taken into account by a cost-benefit analysis, which every EU country had to perform. And on the result of the cost-benefit analysis of Germany, there was a negative result so far. So a rollout scenario which was favored by the EU was given a negative net value capital. On the other side, there were different scenarios taken into account, and one of them had showed a potential for implementing, and it's called the rollout scenario plus. And the main benefits from this partial rollout were the savings of energy costs, prevention of investments in the grids, and some process enhancement. It was shown that the most saving potential lies with the highest consumption. Consumption and savings relate directly to each other. Also, as the transformation of the energy sector will lead to more stress on the grid, it was shown that the distribution grids were the most affected part of the grid, and there could be the highest savings potential as well regarding investments. And of course, there are system and process enhancements by implementing smart metering with the readings of the meter and billing. Next slide, please. So the mentioned rollout scenario plus, can we have the next slide, please? Yes, is shown a net capital value of 1.5 billion euros during 8 years. It was planned some years ago, so the end date should have been 22. Right now it would be 28, so the numbers may change a little bit. In this rollout scenario plus, we had a number of total metering points considered with 48.2 million. In this scenario, we have 2 different devices in the field for the digitization of the metering, which one would be the simple meter and the other the smart metering system. And not every metering point would gain in this 8 years such a system. So the numbers here would be 32 million smart metering points. Of them, 11.9 million would be smart metering systems. The scenario took or made some conclusions that this simple meter would be a very cost-effective for low consumption consumers and for consumers who opt out of a smart metering. But metering points with a high consumption and in-feed management, they should be obligated to use the smart metering system. So next slide, please. So I can present you the smart metering systems and which parts it comprises. We have as a central communication platform the smart meter gateway, which is abbreviated with SMGW. This is the core component of the smart metering system. It connects, for example, to the simple meters in the local metrological network. The simple meter itself does not have a communication with the wide area network, so it is more or less a digital meter, but it has a connection possibility to the smart meter gateway. So optional cases from the slide before, which are first equipped with a simple meter, can easily upgrade it to a smart metering system by adding the smart meter gateway and connect the devices. On the other side, in the home area network, the smart meter gateway can connect to controllable local systems. Authorized clients can connect themselves like the consumer to get their readings, but also different sensors, submeters, and in the future, energy management systems can be connected on this side. The wide area network is connected via a mobile or cable network. And here are all subjects connecting to the smart meter gateway, which do have some reason to do so. For example, the administrator who is in charge of operating the device, but also energy and service providers or value-added services. Next slide, please. A strong motivation for us as the BSI is prevention of security threats. So we had two key aspects to keep in mind when designing the system and creating the technical specifications. One is privacy with the General Data Protection Regulation from 2016. It is EU-wide a high level of data protection established. But in the planning, we had to rely on national laws, and we had a strong communication dialogue with the Federal Commissioner for Data Protection and Freedom of Information in Germany. And they did a evaluation and come to the result that the smart metering system processes personal data. They point out that the potential of this processing this consumption data could lead to extraction of details of the life of the customer. So they lay out that we must implement strong privacy in this smart metering infrastructure. On the other side, for the security, the BSI performed a non-public threat analysis, and it resulted that there would be a high attack potential, as the smart metering system should be the infrastructure for the complete smart grid, and therefore a component of a very critical infrastructure for the whole country. This led to a state-of-the-art IT security. So the smart metering gateway has a strong cryptographic part, and all cryptography methods are done or supported by an embedded secure module. The secure module and the smart meter gateway itself has a proven implementation of the security by a third-party certification, which is, in this case, Common Criteria. This is an ISO standard number 50408. In the case of a high attack potential, it includes the source code analysis, also pen testing, and also a site visit of the production site. Next slide, please. So the key features of our smart metering systems are, of course, the core component, the smart meter gateway, with an embedded secure module. It secures all communications from and to the smart meter gateway with TLS 1.2 and in future 1.3. It takes the calibrated and non-validated data measurement and stores them locally, and so we have a distributed data management. Also, all parts which are connecting to the smart meter gateway and have some rights granted, like the administrator, will have to perform a certification by ISO 27001. It provides a lot of features like security software updates, the ability to connect wireless and wired meters, sensors, and so on. Also, a key feature right now is that there is a transparent TLS tunnel possible between devices in the home area network, the CLS devices, with external third-party market partners. So a secure communication from any backend is possible with the devices inside the home area network. To secure all this communications, you need a public key infrastructure, which is in this case the German smart meter public key infrastructure. It uses elliptic curve cryptography, and the root certificate authority is operated by the BSI itself. The external market players which can connect to the SMGW and, for example, receive data readings or do control actions. So there are two different players, the passive, which only receives data, that has to provide a security concept, and active external market players, which will be allowed to take control actions. They also have to have an ISO 27001 certification. So we have here established a complete security network on all levels. Next slide, please. I did a comparison with the functional recommendations of the EU from 2012, and you can see here that almost every aspect is fulfilled, but on one side, point G, the flow and power limitation on the demand side management is supported by third-party devices via the CLS tunnel and the backend systems of the external market partners. And of course, the advanced tariff systems, they are in the future because they rely on political frameworks as well, which are underway right now. Next slide, please. And for another comparison with the Directive 944 of last year, several functional requirements of the smart metering were issued by the EU. For example, the 15 minutes interval readings, non-validated near real-time data, and the possibility of metering different commodities. So this is all fulfilled by this infrastructure component right now. Next slide, please. I'll come to the rollout in Germany right now. So we are very happy to announce that in the end, we started this year with our rollout. It took some time, but we had to wait until we had 3 different devices certified under the CC certification and ready to be sold to the market. So currently we have not only 3, but 4 smart meter gateways with a complete certification. Additional 4 are waiting in evaluation. The 4 already sold smart meter gateways are in the so-called re-evaluation, so they add further functionality via the software updates once they completed the CC recertification. One question, next slide please. One question was how the rollout plan would be for Germany, and we have 2 dates to consider, which is additionally to the starting date this year. In 3 years, there must be cleared a 10% check mark by the metering point operators, and after 8 years, we want to have a 95% of the obliged metering points. So this would be, in our case, around 3.7 million metering points. But the path in between is open and can be planned by the metering point operators themselves. Next slide, please. I want just to give you an idea which are the consumers and prosumers which are affected right now once the rollout started. So we have different groups of consumers with sorted by their consumption. And there is a rectangle around the consumers which are obliged to, or the metering point operator is obliged to equip the metering points with the smart metering system. All others are optional. And also on the, so you can see the consumer starting with a consumption with 6,000 kilowatts per hours per year until 100,000 kilowatt hours per year are obliged to receive a smart meter system. But the other groups in the low part, in the blue part of the picture, they are optional. That means this metering point operator can, of course, equip their metering points also with a smart metering system, but but gets a lower fee for it, and it can generate synergy effect, for example. So on the next slide, I will show you just the numbers briefly, how many metering points relate to these groups. And as you can see, the green one is the green pie part is the group which is obliged currently to get a smart metering system, and the big blue part of the circle, these are these optional cases, but you can gain a lot of synergy effects if you combine the metering system with different sensors and EMS systems, so you can create benefits for the metering point operator by equipping optional metering points with a smart metering system. To give an idea how this could work in future, on the next slide, we have a look at the in-feed management. Next slide, please. So we have on the right side generation plans, in the future on the left side generation plans, on the right side consumption systems, which will increase over time in the market. So we have here, the numbers are here, exemplary scenario from the year 2030. And you will see that the consumption systems, for example, e-mobility charging boxes, but also heat pumps for houses, night storage and battery storages, they will significantly have a large number of 12 million estimates, and this is all optional cases. So of this blue pie we saw before, there's a lot of possibility to equip it with a smart meter gateway just for future consumption systems, which will get more and more into the market. On the other side, the generation plans are around 4 million estimated. And of course, the generation plants, they produce a lot of more power when it's consumed by these systems. There are a lot of consumers beside the system as well. So there is a market even in the cases of potential systems. Next slide, please. The future development of all these, which I show you, we have clustered into 3 clusters. So with the technical standards we have to set, we need to know where the road is going to. And we have here a strategy for the standardization of the cross-sectoral digitization. Cluster 1, we started with this, is the smart metering itself, of course, and already taking into account the sub-metering. Cluster 2 will handle the smart grid, in-feed and load management, smart mobility, all related with charging infrastructure, charge management. And cluster 1 is more or less fixed and implemented or in implementation by the manufacturers from the gateway. And cluster 2 is currently discussed a lot with the economy, with all players and stakeholders related to it. And cluster 3, this is future extension, smart home, smart building, smart services. So everything where you need these advanced energy management system, a lot of sensors, and a lot of third-party value-added services. And to get this into the right direction, on the next slide, I can show you we have established a so-called roadmap process in together with the Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy, of course, and all the stakeholders from the economy. And we have here a dialogue format and discuss a lot of things. And here is discussed in which steps we could develop our legal framework hand in hand with the technical standards. So it has a great benefit that the standards and the legal framework will also relate to the same idea of use cases which should be implemented, and there's no gap in between. And with this close participation of the industry, we guarantee a great acceptance of the results of this roadmap process. Once here the technical cornerstones are fixed, my section will do the work and convert it to technical standards. On the next slide, I will just recap the benefits from this roadmap process. We have a lot of transparency with this discussion rounds and participation with the industry. We do discussions via webinar in these times, but also questionnaires and commentaries from all the possible use cases which the economy is trying to get with us running. We need to do a prioritization and condensation of these use cases, which is done in close dialogue. So the benefit for the economy itself then is in the plannable implementation, so that investments are saved and we have new functionalities implemented in by updates by the legal framework, and of course updates via the software on the smart meter gateway. I will do a final remarks, a recap on the next slide. I just want to give you here on the way, the rollout in Germany started this year. We have established a great infrastructure over all sectors. This infrastructure is under continuously evolution by dialogue formats and involvement of technical specifications. And of course, for generating trust in such a technology, which is installed in a critical infrastructure, we need proven cybersecurity and data protector, and this is from the start done by a lot of certification. And so all this infrastructure aligns with the EU recommendations, and we hopefully see next year the numbers from the rollout starting this year and can present them on the next workshop. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Andreas Resch, for this interesting presentation on the German approach towards communicating meters. Before we come to the next presentation, could you please just answer one question that has been sent concerning the abbreviation TLS? Could you please just tell us what TLS stands for?
Yes, of course. TLS is a technology for securing communications via internet, for example. It's the transport layer security. And this is, so to say, if you drive or if you have a telephone call, it secures all the data being exchanged from two persons directly. So there's no way to get to the data in between. Only the persons on the left and the right side of this TLS tunnel are able to decrypt data, and it also provides authenticity and integrity of the data.
All right, thank you very much for this explication. And we come now to the French approach, and we will hear Martial Montfort from Enedis on the French meter Linky. Martial, please take over.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Martial Montfort. I'm from Enedis, one of the French DSO. I'm the Chief Technical Officer for the Linky program, which is the nickname of our smart metering rollout. My presentation is focused on the Linky rollout, of course, and the new services either already in place or planned in the near future. Next slide, please. First of all, what is the background to the smart meter rollout in France? I try to summarize. It is a long story from the EU smart meter directive in 2009 and the beginning of the rollout in 2015. As you know, the target of the EU directive was to roll out 80% of the meter by 2020 and to carry out a cost-benefit analysis, the famous CBA. Enedis launched a pilot project of 300,000 meters from March 2010, to March 2011. Then you can see in green on the slide. We selected two areas, Lyon for dense population and Tours for rural population, to have a pilot representing the whole country. The result was technically okay, but it was only the beginning because we have to find the business plan. So, to summarize, after different decisions from the regulator and the French government, the regulatory framework, let's say the business plan, was decided in 2014 for a massive rollout of 90% of the meters by 2021. Not exactly as the EU directive. And the total budget of 4.5 billion euros. So this is the background. But what is the Linky smart meter for? First, for customer, and secondly, for energy transition. You will see that my presentation is essentially focused on that two topics. Our customer have already access to many more services on the SASL, thanks to operations that can now be done remotely, like remote meter reading, remote commissioning, etc. And just to give you an example, last summer, we commissioned 700,000 new customers remotely. What does that mean? It means that our customers who were moving home didn't have to fix a physical appointment with one of our technicians in their new home. This saves time and hassle for everybody. Next slide, please. Okay, Linky program in some key figures. Our target is to deploy 35 million meters and 700,000 data concentrator in 6 years from 2015 to 2021. Of course, we are working with a lot of different partners that we have selected for their quality and long experience with smart metering. We are working with six international meter and DC data concentrator manufacturers, which factory based all in France. Concerning meter, it's Sagemcom, Itron, Landis+Gyr, ZIV, and Honeywell. And concerning concentrator, it's Sagemcom, Landis+Gyr, and Kao Group, based in the south of France. We are working with 45 local installation companies and recycle companies too. This is a big job too, as we have to recycle the 35 whole meter that were currently in place. Altogether, this represents 10,000 jobs created. So where are we now? On the left side of the slide. Last week, we reached a new milestone. 28 million meters are now being installed. You can see on the graphic the rollout curve since the beginning. And we can say that we are almost in the line with the roadmap, even with the COVID-19 crisis, where during more than 2 months, we have totally stopped the installation. But the good news is that we are still roughly on the curve. This means that 3/4 of our customers are now equipped with a smart meter. So we can carry out 40,000 remote operations per day with a successful rate of 99%. The good news is that we are well above the target fixed by the French regulator. The bad news is that the French regulator has fixed a higher target for the coming years. That's life. And last but not least, 5 million people are now monitoring their consumption online. Next slide, please. Briefly, what are the key features of the Linky meter? We have summarized it in 3 main features. The first one, electricity consumption measure, of course. A wide range of information is available: time of use tariff, peak tariff, daily power max, load curve, etc. You can access this information either locally or remotely on your phone, for example. All this information allow energy supplier to propose new offers, for example, low-cost energy at the weekend, and helps customers to reduce their consumption. Right now in France, there are around 10 new offers based on Linky proposed by different energy suppliers. The second feature is the electricity generation information. This meter also measures generation, renewable self-generation, which is a key part of energy transition, of course. Third function, management of in-home appliances. We will explore this feature later in the presentation. And technically, at the bottom of the slide, this box, the Linky box, is not only a meter, but also communication box with two-way channel communication with the IT central system. With the software is upgradable remotely to integrate future new features. And finally, cybersecurity protection in compliance with the French Security Agency requirements called ANSI. And every type of meter is checked and certified by laboratory selected by ANSI. Next slide, please. Okay, from the meter to the central system. Sorry for these slides. It's a little bit complicated, but the idea is to show you that the smart meter system is above all a very complex data communication system. So from the left of the slide to the right, the architecture is divided into 3 stages. The meter on the left, the data concentrator in the middle, and the IT system on the right. The communication between meter and data concentrators is based on G3 PLC technology. This technology was first developed for the Linky project, but is now used all over the world, and especially in Asia. We have created an alliance to promote this PLC called the G3 PLC Alliance, with 90, if I remember well, with 90 members. The communication between the data concentrator and the central system is based on GPRS and or UMTS. Coming back to cyber security, the whole communication chain is secure and regularly audited to ensure that it's compliant with the ANSI requirement. Next slide, please. Our customer experiences with Linky. This slide describes our customer experiences. Each star represents different level of services. The first star on your left, the customer is equipped with Linky for a few weeks. He's now benefiting from new services like, look at the bottom of the slide, the Peter experience. Of course, meter reading, invoice based on real energy use, of course, and a better detection of network failure. This feature is not well known, but thanks to central system supervision, we have the capability to detect very quickly failure on the grid. For example, if we lose the communication with a group of meters on the same low voltage wire, at the same time, the IT system sends automatically an alarm. By the way, this feature was very useful last week after the catastrophic storm that we have in the southeast of France to reestablish connection to the grid to the inhabitants. Another function feature is the protection against electrical surges. Thanks to the breaker integrate into the meter, in case of electrical surges, the customer network is automatically disconnected to protect electrical appliances. This is for the, let's say, the basic services. Second star in the middle. The customer has created his personal account. That is the case for 5 million customers. To monitor his energy consumption, he chooses to transmit his half-hourly consumption data to an energy supplier or a service provider. And if you look at the Peter experience at the bottom, his energy supplier is offering him a cheaper electricity on the afternoon when he's at home, as an example. On the 3-star services on the right, the customer plug a remote module into the Linky meter to manage his domestic devices via emerging supplier offer. And have a look at the Peter experience. It's much more happy now because now he got a new electric car that is charging when the electricity is cheaper. It's just to give you a map of all the range of services that we can provide with Linky. Of course, this is the beginning of the story. The first star, it's okay. The 2-star, it's now, and the 3-star, it's for the near future. Next slide, please. Just to give you an explanation of the managing of in-home appliances. How does it work? A key requirement for successful energy transition is the ability to manage your in-home appliances. The Linkimeter has a customer data communication interface. Then you can see on the right side of the meter, customer data communication interface, which sends information in real time to switch different in-home devices on or off, such as hot water tank, heating, heat pump, electric vehicle charging, battery, etc. We call this feature the virtual switch, in reference to the real switch in the Linkimeter, which is already used to switch on the hot water tank at night when electricity is cheaper during off-peak hours. Les heures creuses pour les Français. So thanks to this feature, Linky, combined with an energy box, can manage the customer consumption by taking into account of the electricity price or self-generation. Of course, a communication chain has to be developed between the meter and the appliances to make this feature effective. But new offers are already available or soon to be launched. For example, radio communication modules that you can plug into the meter is already available. And electric vehicle charging, but with which is now compatible with our Linky customer interface. Next slide, please. To conclude my presentation, here are 4 topics where smart metering is a key tool for energy transition. First, energy saving or management, which operates information a customer can save around 10% of their electric consumption. Second, renewable energy integration. Thanks to digitalization, the network is more agile. Intermittent energy can be more easily integrated. Electric self-consumption. Linky combined with an energy box can manage both consumption and generation. And finally, electric vehicles. Smart meter enable closer management of vehicle charging and the development of customers' offers. Thank you for your attention. Andreas and I will be very pleased to answer any question you may have.
Thank you very much, Martial Montfort, for your presentation on the Linky and the French approach towards communicating meters. We have received quite a lot of questions, but for those who still hesitate, please do not and send us your questions now so that we can take them into account. And we have been more than 130 to follow you all along your presentations. So this highlights the importance of this topic. Now, if we come to the questions, and maybe I would just like to add that both presentations will be available within the next days on our website in the member section. So please check it out. There were quite a lot of questions about data. In what time lapse will data be collected, for example, in private households? And how is it processed? And who decides who can access the data in France and in Germany? Would you like to maybe explain how this is organized in Germany, Andreas Resch? Okay, I don't have no sound. Maybe.
I can begin if you want.
Can you hear
Yes,
me?
maybe Marcel, if you want to go
Ah.
first.
Concerning the data collection in France, we read the meter every day, and only every day. It's not a real-time reading. It's from midnight to, let's say, 6 o'clock. We read all the meter, and concerning the privacy, the decision concerning the publication is done by the customer. In France, the CNIL, the French agency concerning privacy, make a lot of requirements, and basically, we don't have Enedis don't have the right to give to, let's say, energy supplier to give the customer information. This is the customer who gives the right to Enedis to give the information to the supplier. The only thing is that we are allowed to read, of course, the daily index. But concerning, for example, the load curve, the half-hour load curve, hourly load curve, we don't have any right to read the load curve without the authorization of the customer.
Okay. Thank
So I
you,
can try
Andreas
again.
Resch. Yes,
Do you
please.
hear me? Yes.
Yes.
So the microphone was disabled. So who can access the data? I will start with this first. This is done everything on, of course, the legal basis. In the Metering Point Operating Act, there are already defined several subjects which will receive a certain set of data. For example, the DSOs will receive data for the for the grid status. The supplier, of course, the consumption data. And additional, the consumer can contract with any third-party player, and on this basis, share the data of consumption or whatever sensor with this contract partner. In terms of our timelines of the data collected, it depends a little bit which commodity, for example, gas or electricity. Internally, the devices collect the data for electricity in a 15-minute interval, for gas in a 1-hour interval, and in electricity, the 15-minute interval is for wired meters. We also added the opportunity for wireless meters, and they are currently under an improvement that they also can supply the data over air in a 15-minute interval, but it's still under standardization. But the partners which will then get the data, it depends on your tariff. So even if the device collects the consumption data of electricity in a 15-minute interval, for example, the supplier will only get this data on this highly interval if the tariff allows it to receive data. Normally, for a lot of people, normal consumers, they have a tariff with only one reading a year. Right now of the meter, this will be increased on once per month. But if you want to have a higher resolution, the consumer has to opt for another tariff with this explicit stated high resolution consumption readings.
Okay, and the communication of this data, does it take place as in France via the electrical grid, or is there a different technology?
It's different. I think I briefly mentioned it before. It's taking public networks like 4G, 3G, 2G into account. Sometimes these are networks operated by the grid operators itself. So there's a large variety. It also can be transported via yes, via the grid, the electricity grid itself, but it's choosable. It's no fixed. The important thing that is that it's secured. So your communication channel must be able to handle the TLS, the transport layer security, bidirectional communication. And apart from it, there is discussion. So a lot of people are opting for 2G networks as there is a good coverage also inside buildings. And power line, yes, that's also what I said. Power line, sometimes it is used, but of course, new ways are also developed on different frequencies, for example. So we will see what 5G adds to display, and this is choosable by the metering point operator.
Okay, thank you, Martial Montfort. Was this excuse me?
I think one addition, the main difference here is that there is no concentrator in place. So the data is locally stored on each smart meter gateway and then directly in a one-to-one connection distributed to the corresponding subject who wants to receive the data. So the gateway connects to the supplier and to the grid operator, DSO, and maybe directly to any third-party player. And everyone gets their data points, and they cannot see the data points of the others.
Okay. Martial Montfort, could you please also explain why in France it was finally chosen to go via the electrical grid and not via, for example, mobile networks?
Oh, it's very simple. This is the cheapest solution in our condition. Why is it the cheapest solution? Because we have decided a massive rollout, not a selective rollout. I want to say, if for example, you begin with one type of customer, of course, the PLC solution is not okay, because you need a big number of meters to allow a good communication. I just want to say that some meters are used as a repeater for the communication of the other one. So in that condition, PLC is the cheapest solution. And just one other point, very important. We had a lot of discussion, internal discussion concerning what we call the rural zone, the BT network with very few meters. For example, in France, we have 1 meter with one transformer. In that case, the PLC solution is apparently not cost effective. You understand? If you have, let's say, 100 meters for one PLC data concentrator, of course, this is very cost effective. But with 1, 2, 3, or even 5 meters for one data concentrator, the question is the solution, point-to-point solution, a most cost-effective solution? And finally, we choose for all the meters the PLC. Why? Because in the other case, we'll need to develop 2 types of meters, 2 types of communication, and 2 types of IT system. So, in fact, we choose PLC as the unique solution for all the meter.
Okay, and that is a very nice introduction also to my next question, because it will deal with cost and ownership. Who owns the meter in France and in Germany, and who pays for it, and over what duration? Maybe in Germany first.
I can start. So the meter and the smart meter gateway, so all the equipment of the metering point owns this metering point operator. I mean, some years ago, this was the supplier and also the DSO, but now it's a separate section. So the metering point operator is in charge on everything which relates to the metering itself. And in one of my slides, I had this groups with the consumption, and the cost of this metering equipment per year can be is obliged to the customer to pay on a yearly basis, and this ranges from to something. So I guess it starts in the optional cases from 20 euros a year to 100 euros, 150 euros, and even without limit if the consumption is beyond 100,000 kilowatt hours per year. So it depends a lot on the situation.
Okay, and this is included in the electricity bill, and it's not.
The electricity bill it consists of two parts: one of the supplier for your electricity consumption itself, and also on the bill is the position for the metering itself, which means the equipment and the services for the metering itself.
Okay, and Martial Montfort for the French side.
It's very simple. The meter is owned by the DSO. What was the other part of the question?
Who pays for it, how, and over what time lapse, for example?
In France, this is, in our case, it's Enedis. And for how long? The lifetime of the meter is 20 years. That's what I can what I can say.
So this will be a permanent feature on the electricity bill also in France.
Concerning the price of the.
Yes, it's more a lease than a purchase.
The total cost of the project, as I say, is 4.5 billion euro. So the the meter points cost is 135 euros. Altogether, the meters, the installation, part of the data concentration, the IT system, altogether. But it's totally transparent for the customer. It's not. It's in the network tariff globally. You see what I mean?
Okay. And as we're talking about money, maybe we could take a look at the question of energy efficiency, which I think is an interesting point, because we have a microeconomic interest that is also converging with a macroeconomic interest. The less energy is consumed by households, for example, the less expensive the power grid might be also. Marcel Montfort mentioned 10% of energy efficiency. How did you determine that figure, and what are the conditions for how generally can this be applied to users of the Linky, do you think?
In France, this 10% of energy efficiency, it's not Enedis communication is the French environmental organization, is l'ADEME, who publish that result based on different studies. And our conviction is that this 10% is only the beginning, using only information given by the meter. But if you look at the third feature of the meter, with each to manage the in-home appliances automatically, this is certainly the best way for energy efficiency. To give you some example with electric vehicles, for example, of course, if you can charge the vehicle when you have a lot of generation, we can understand that we can save energy. As an example.
Okay. Andreas Resch, would you think that these conclusions would also apply to Germany in the future?
So the unmuting process takes me some time. I think it's globally there are similarities that, for example, a lot of potential of saving costs is due to a smart grid functionality. One would be, for example, optimization of grid costs. If you have in Germany, you have to pay for your connection to the grid depending on several parameters. For example, maximum power you want to consume once at a time. And if you exceed this limit, you have to pay a lot more. So one goal would be for you to optimize your consumption from the grid under this limit. And this is really a nice thing to do with smart metering on the home. On the other side, cost saving with investments into the grid. If a lot of people are going to buy electric vehicles, the loading process and the power you consume on this could be distributed over time more effectively if all the metering points, charging points would be connected to a smart meter infrastructure and shifted to balance the overall load on the grid, so that there is no need anymore to invest in the last mile grid, so which is also the most expensive part of a distribution grid. The savings for, I say, a household customer, we have in our cost benefit analysis numbers which have a huge range. They go up to 10, 15, maybe 20%, but starts also at 0.5% to 1%. And as I heard 2 years ago in a different workshop from UK, that the effective savings in the consumption of electricity for a normal household is less than expected. So I think the most important part in terms of cost effectiveness is on the grid, and also for the metering point operators and process improvements. So if the readings are completely paperless and digital and over the air, then there is a lot of savings potential.
Okay. That is very interesting to see how this might have an impact on macroeconomic aspects. And as we're talking about costs still, I found it very interesting to see that, if I got it right, that in Germany there are different applications for different types of users in terms of the consumption. So we have maybe more sophisticated systems for or gateways for a large consumption and maybe a more simple one for households. In France, this seems not to be the case. Martial Montfort, was the main argument for that economies of scale, or do you think that the differences in the needs of large consumers and small consumers is not that important in terms of their requirements for a smart meter?
Of course, for economy of scales, you're right. But our conviction is that smart meter, it's a good thing for every customers. So concerning energy efficiency, of course, but if you look, for example, at the failure detection, we can see that the fact to have only one smart meter for everybody is the key tool to manage the network and the digitalization. That's why we choose to put smart meter everywhere.
Okay.
Maybe I can add something to this topic from a German perspective. What you mentioned, I just want to state clearly we have only one smart meter gateway, and this is the smart component of the smart metering system. The other device we have is this digital meter, sample meter. It is completely offline unless it gets connected to a smart meter gateway. So this is just a digital meter which replaces the Ferraris meters. And but it has the connection ability to a smart meter gateway, and then both form together the smart metering system. The smart meter gateway itself supports multiple meters. So for there is synergy effects for an operating metering operator to, for example, to connect to. You're not obliged to use the smart meter gateway in a household, for example, because consumption is too low. But if you can meter gas, water, heat, or additionally to electricity digitally and read this over the air with a smart meter gateway, then you have a business case, for example, and then the operator will do it by itself and equip this metering point with a smart meter gateway just for his own benefit, not exactly for other benefits, but it's a business coin, and we want to generate as much business cases as possible by connecting a lot of things to the smart metering system. And then it will be, even if it's not obliged to install, it will be a strong benefit to do so.
Right, you anticipated my next question, because that was precisely it. If we look at energy, not only electricity, so we understand that in Germany there is the possibility to have a system that communicates with different energy consumptions. Is this something that is possible also with the Linky?
Clearly not. Clearly no. Because we don't. Firstly, we don't have the same roadmap with the gas solution. As you know, in France there is another project called Gaspar for the gas. So, of course, this is not the same solution as we are using PLC. And of course, PLC is not a good solution for gas. But coming back to the other question, just to add something, even if in France every customer will have the same meter, each customer has the possibility to, with the customer interface, to choose this in-home infrastructure. And maybe this point is very important. This is a universal solution, but each customer has the possibility to adapt it.
Okay. A question connected to this. of course, energy is a field that is evolving very quickly. Not only electricity, but I think the consumption of energy as such. We see, for example, emission targets that are altered by the European Commission that will have an impact on energy consumption everywhere. Both of you mentioned that aspect that there will be a growing consumption of electricity in the future to replace the use of Andreas Resch mentioned that of fossil fuels. What to what extent your systems are future-proof, and what does this future-proofness consist of?
I can begin with one example concerning the investment on the grid. As you mentioned, with the growth of electricity, we have to invest more in the grid. But if you invest only concerning the peak, the power peak, especially with renewable, it could be very expensive. So with smart meter and data and digitalization, you can reduce the peak and reduce the investment, and in fact, permit the growth of electricity.
So the Linky itself is enabling, let's say, the sectoral integration. And in terms for the consumer, for example, is there you can update the software, I imagine, to integrate new functions on the Linky?
Yeah, yes, of course. Of course, as I mentioned before, the time life is 20 years. So can we imagine the future now? It's impossible. So that's why we can upgrade the software to add new feature.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Andreas Resch, do you have?
Yes, I mean, I can give you just an example of future-proof itself. So right now we are only metering electricity with obligation, but from the future, the gas will have to connect to the smart meter gateway itself. It's fixed state in the Act. So it's the legal framework already has this foreseen that the gas will be metered with the smart meter system itself already. And also the same applies to charging points for e-mobility. So right now it's a little bit difficult for the technical details, but it should be starting as soon as possible from next year on. So it's not going to be next year, first, but if the technical possibility emerges, then it should be as soon as possible metered there. This lies a little bit in the case of that the device itself is disconnected from the meter. So the meters of different components can connect, and on the other side we have this so-called CLS channel for the controllable local systems. They don't need to be controllable. You also can connect their sensors and other meters. So it's really future-proof for a lot of applications. And the intelligence of these future applications can reside within the back end of then the market player who offers the service, and the smart metering system itself guarantees for the security, privacy, the integrity of the data. And so the device itself is very flexible because it is extendable. And of course, I mean, what we mentioned, the software itself can be updated remotely after checking and being certified. So apart from this, but I think the extensibility is a great point here to mention.
Okay, thank you very much. Unfortunately, if I look at the clock, we're coming already to the end of this webinar. Thank you ever so much, Valerian Lenzner, Martial Montfort, and Andreas Resch for these interesting presentations and insights and the Q&A session. I would also like to thank Sarah and Tim from our team and Linda from Think Smartgrids for preparing this webinar, and to Antoine for the technical support today. Before we sign off, just a few announcements. The slides, as I said, and the video recording of this webinar will soon be ready for you to consult in the members section of our website. Coming up next at the Franco-German Office, we have on November 3rd, the third Franco-German Energy Forum, Europe post-COVID-19, political and economic agendas for the energy transition and climate change mitigation, with an all-star program and a live stream in English, French, and German. Registration is free. And I recommend you to take a look at it on our website and to register. A few places are still up for grabs. On November 17th and 18th, we will have a conference on onshore wind power and spatial planning, approaches, land use, and technologies. And on December 2nd and 3rd, we will talk about PV and consumers, self-consumption, new concepts and new markets. It's also, of course, a smart meter topic. So check out our program that will be soon available on our website. And now I would like to pass the mic to Valerian for some announcements for Think Smart Grid.
Yes, thank you, Sven. I just wanted to tell you that on Monday, the 19th, there will be the launching of a special event of the DENA and ADEME. We are partner of. What is this event? It's what we call an Enerton. Enerton is a data ton for energy. So it will take place for the first time this year. So the launching normally should have occurred physically in Paris, but it will be a virtual event. And during 4 weeks, there will be effective and digital challenges in the areas of gas, heat, electricity, alternative fuels, municipal utilities, and critical infrastructure that will be solved by teams within 4 weeks of coding and business case analysis. And the results of this Enerthon will be given during the Energiewende Congress that will occur on the 17th of November in Berlin. So the teams will obtain their prize on this date, and it will be a concrete result of what we can do with the data provided, for example, by the smart meters in both countries. And that's it for me. Thank you very much, Sven, for this webinar. Thank you very much also for Dr. Resch and for Martial Montfort.
Thank you, Valerian. The pleasure was all ours. Now, we are also preparing a new series of webinars on a large variety of topics, like the evolution of the European climate targets, for example. So please do make sure you are on our mailing list, and you will stay updated that way. You can register for our conferences and our webinars on our website OFATE.eu or DFBEW. And on that website, you will, of course, also find soon today's slides and many interesting publications for you to download on data topics, but on actually all aspects of the energy transition. And this is all from my side for now. Thank you very much for being with us today. And please do stay safe. See you very soon, and bye-bye.